So that's a good segue. So talk about how that all got started with the Hendricks Foundation.
Man, how that got started. So I did have an idea back in 2020 when I saw how many students didn't have adequate access to computers. Kind of puzzled me. Like, for one, in Detroit, much less all over the United States, to realize that the digital divide was so wide.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, where connections matter. I am Charles, your host of the Detroit Metro Podcast, and welcome to episode number 72. Every week, we bring you interviews of Detroit difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement. And I'm excited tonight because we have a very special guest who's going to talk about the topic, the digital divide. We have a special guest, Dean Hendricks. He's going to talk about his work and his foundation. So welcome everybody who's joining us live on our Facebook page at the Detroit Metro Plug Podcast, on our LinkedIn page at the Detroit Metro Plug Podcast, and also our Facebook group, the Detroit Metro Plug, the Marketplace. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, everyone who is joining us on this Sunday evening. Hopefully everybody's having a good evening. Do me a favor. If you find value in what we're doing and you're interested in this topic, please like and follow our page, and also share this with friends, family, and associates as we interview this difference maker in Detroit doing great work dealing with the issue of sustainability, e-waste, and helping to bridge the digital divide. Okay, so before I go into the introduction of our guests, I do have a question for those who are viewing. I have a question for you. Have you ever desired in your heart to make a great impact, or maybe to be a local hero, or contribute to the community in some important way? If you said yes to those questions, I want to invite you to join me in being a member of the Black Leaders Detroit. It's a movement. So for those who don't know, I am an ambassador of Black Leaders Detroit, and I try to help to amplify the work that they're doing and encourage people to become members. They are helping African-American owned businesses and African-American led community organizations, nonprofits, with resources, funding. They've given over $1 million in resources over the past year or so. They have an upcoming event in May called the Ride for Equity. You'll hear more about that. I'll post some things about that on our platforms. But let me share this quick video, and I'll come back and talk about how you can be of support of Black Leaders Detroit.
Black Leaders Detroit, they knew that during the pandemic, that Black businesses were going to be left out of any type of funding that the government gave, and they wanted to make sure that they were able to figure out how they could step up and help, because again, this is their community, and they want to make sure that their community is still here when this pandemic is over with. And the only way you can do that is by offering support to your community, and so they stepped up and they did that.
I've been telling everyone I know about Black Leaders Detroit. The things that they're doing is simply amazing. And they're taking care of business for the Black business owners.
It's $1 a week donation to keep this great thing moving. $1 a week keeps it popping. Black Leaders Detroit.
All right, just like the lady said, $1 a week keep this thing moving. $1 a week keeps it popping. So you too can become a member, just $1 a week, $52 a year. You can donate annually or weekly or monthly. You can sign up by simply going to blackleadersdetroit.org, blackleadersdetroit.org, and you too can become a face of a hero. All right. So we're going to get into introducing our guests. So we have Yes. So we have a great topic today, bridging the digital divide. And so our next guest, uh, he's originally born in Jamaica. He's been living in the United States since the age of 2, uh, has been in the Detroit area since high school. Um, back from his country, he was not fortunate as a lot of individuals in his country. Um, as a child, he always wanted to get a computer, and lucky for him, he was able to get his hand on a few old decommissioned computers as a young age. Uh, it broke 3 times. He broke 3 of them until he finally, well, I think it looks like a couple of them broke, and he finally fixed one of them. And once he did, he fell in love with IT. So as a result of fixing computers, he fell in love with IT. Uh, 15 years since he started his journey with computers, uh, he has yet to look back. When 2020 came around and he saw how students were falling behind during as a result of the pandemic, um, he could not believe of the digital divide in a city of Detroit was so wide. So he decided to find a solution. He came up with a solution. Came to him one day. Saw a couple of people throwing out good computers because they were too slow. Instead of letting this computer turn to e-waste, he realized he could repurpose these computers for underprivileged students, helping to lessen our impact on the environment and also spreading equity through access to digital education. So his desire is to not to rest until every student who have economic challenges, financial challenges, low income students have a computer of their own to help bridge the digital divide. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome to the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, Mr. Dean Hendricks.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be in your presence again, brother man.
Before we go into your introduction and questions about yourself, I want to show this quick clip. This is a clip from the film that was produced called "The Digital Divide: America in High School." This was produced. This movie was produced by the Academy nominee Rory Kennedy, and this film is on the YouTube channel National Geographic, as well as their platforms with National Geographic. Produced and directed by Academy Award nominee Rory Kennedy. Let me show you this clip, and then we'll get into our discussion.
The way that our robots work is we have code on a laptop that we can then download onto the brain of the robot here.
Today in school, I don't think I will use a computer at all.
Our hopes for the future are very technology dependent.
Not having internet has been difficult because most everything is internet based, so there's a lot more stress on the students to find a way to actually do their homework.
It's just exciting knowing that I'm going to go to college, like my dream is coming true.
We grew up living poor. We want to see what it's like to have a chance.
All right. So I showed that clip. I did an introduction of how you got into this whole space with computers, IT, and playing your role in helping to bridge the digital divide. But before we go into that, just tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you feel comfortable with. I know you were originally born in Jamaica. You came to the States at age 2, but share us a little bit about your journey.
So yeah, came to the States at age 2, and I, like you mentioned earlier, did not grow up in the best of situations. I originally started my life out in Boston. Dorchester, if anybody knows about Dorchester, it's not the easiest area to grow up in, but that's where I'm from. Mm-hmm. Like you were talking about earlier, I was able to find a few computers around the area and work on them, and it was breaking 3 of them and then fixing one that really got me started on my journey. I've always wanted to be a computer engineer of sorts, whether it be a software engineer or a bioscientist, just something that involves computers. So being able to do this now with my life, have it be pretty much my bread and butter, is a sort of dream come true. Not only am I able to work with computers every day, but I'm also able to see a smile on someone's face when they get that computer that I just fixed. So it's a pleasure, man.
Okay. All right. So you shared, I read a little bit in the bio intro, and you shared again just how you kind of fell across this love for computers. So when you were about, how old were you when you started to break apart these computers and put them back together and learn all the integral parts of the computer design?
I started working with computers at the age of 9.
Okay. And
That
how did you get exposed to these computers that people were throwing out?
a lot of the computers, people would just leave them lying around on the streets because they ain't working no more. So it would be like trash day or something like that. I'd be able to find them and I'd take them. Some of the other ones, some of the people who my family would work with,
Hmm.
like they would do CNA work and stuff like that. They'd have broken computers in their house and stuff, things that they weren't using, and I was able to take those.
Oh, okay. And what did you discover when you broke these computers apart or played around with it? What were some of the things
Well,
you?
the first thing I found out was that computers have wires in them, and that you're not supposed to plug them in when you're trying to work on them. That
Okay.
was a quick lesson. I learned
Okay.
it very fast.
Oh, okay. You got shocked
Um,
from plugging up the computer and opening it up.
yeah, lucky to be alive.
Okay.
Um, but another thing that I learned was these are simple. They're just machines. It's not when you hear about technology and computers and all that stuff,
Yeah.
especially with the way how things are going right now with the digital age, your mind goes off into all types of complexities, like you're doing some type of, I don't know, quantum physics.
Right.
But it's
Right.
simple. If you
Okay.
take this wire and you plug it into this socket, if the light turns on, it works. It's that simple.
Okay.
There's not that much to think about. It's not as difficult as it seems. It just
Wow.
takes a little practice and a little know-how.
Now, did you supplement your learning with reading books, or taking classes at a young age to learn more about the whole operating system, how to put
Mm,
the motherboard together and the chips and all that kind of stuff?
no, the most I had was failure, and I didn't even know about YouTube back then. So yeah, it was a lot of trial and error,
Right, error.
and
Okay.
yeah, whole lot of trial and error.
All right. So you started playing around with computers at the age of 9, you start breaking them open, learning the different parts, trial and error. You made sure nothing was plugged up when you was working on it so you wouldn't get that electric shock.
Yeah.
So when did you become confident that you can really repair and work with computers and this was something that you had a passion for?
When I finally bought my first ever like brand new computer, I was about 12. That's when
Okay.
I finally started to get confident.
Hmm.
I took apart that computer and put it back together as well. But
Okay. What kind of computer was it? Was it like a
it
gateway
was a
tower?
it was a HP. It was
Or
a HP
HP?
tower. It was, yeah.
It was
I
HP
didn't get a
tower.
laptop
Okay.
till I was like 15, 16.
Right. Okay. So you had an HP tower and you took that bad boy apart when you did you
Yeah.
buy it at the store at Compu? I don't know, it's CompuWare, Best Buy, or you bought it online?
It might have been Micro Center.
Oh, Micro Center. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
Micro
yeah, you
Center's
know
still
about
around.
Micro Center. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's Micro Center. So you okay. And you took that bad boy apart and saw
Yeah,
the
and put it
slide.
back together.
Yeah,
I started getting a strong interest in gaming at that time. So I
right,
really wanted my computer to run all the games I wanted to play. And it wasn't working at all, especially I love GTA. I couldn't
right.
play GTA. So I saved up some money, bought a graphics card on Amazon, and I was able to put it into my computer and start using it. So
Wow,
yeah,
wow.
that's when I got real confident because I was like, oh,
Okay.
now I can put things in there. Like,
So you can
okay.
put things in there. Did
Mhm.
you add memory to some of the when you broke it apart, the tower apart?
Yeah, I try. Well, not this one, not the HP, but a lot of the older ones. What I try and do is take all the memory and
Okay.
put them into the computer that was working. And that was also when I learned that not every computer uses the same memory.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
when did the word get out? Family and friends like, Dean, he know how to hook them computers up. Did people start coming to you and say, hey man, can you fix this or add this game chip or something to enhance my
It took a bit of a while. I mean, I wasn't the first one who was doing that stuff in my family,
hmm
but I was, what do I say? I was the youngest one who was doing it.
Okay.
So when people saw me doing it, they were just like, "Oh, I don't know what he doing. He don't break it." Like, but the confidence didn't really come around until my later teen years when it was like, "Oh, this is really what he does now." Like he just does it for fun at this point. So
So you're able to build a computer from scratch, just buy all the parts and put it together.
yes, sir.
Okay, okay, all right, all right. So how are you? What are you doing now with computers? Are you working for a company, or is it something you still do as a business, or what are you doing now?
So I do computer repair on the side.
hmm
Um, you got a broken laptop, a broken desktop, anything that's broken, you hit me up and I'll find a way to fix it.
Okay, okay.
Other
Eh,
than that, I'm been moving on making my nonprofit my main thing. I want it to be what I put most of my energy into.
Okay, okay, all right. So you have a side business where you people damage their computer or something happens. I don't know, maybe they spill coffee on it or drop it or something, or maybe become victim to some type of hacking or cyber attack or something. Maybe you help them fix that. But your primary focus is on your foundation. So that's a good segue. So talk about how that all got started with the Hendricks Foundation.
Man, how that got started. So I did have an idea back in 2020 when I saw how many students didn't have adequate access to computers. Kind of puzzled me. Like, for one, in Detroit, much less all over the United States, to realize that the digital divide was so wide, it boggled my mind. Then I did more research and I learned that 66% of students globally do not have access to computers, much less the internet. That's I didn't know the numbers were so high. Like we got billions of people on this planet. And for the numbers to be that high, that's pretty impressive. I mean, in a bad way, but
Right, right,
yeah.
right.
So fast forward to 2021, I happened to be in an elevator with a couple and they had a computer with them. It looked perfectly fine to me. Nothing was wrong with it. It even turned on. But they decided they didn't want it anymore. They were thinking of something to do with it. They were gonna throw it away, do whatever. And I told them, hey, I could take it off your hands. I could do something with that. And told them about my history. They gave me the computer. The rest is history after that.
Okay.
Just like that, I started a foundation. On my
Mhm.
way to pack up the computer so that it inside my car so that it could go home, I was laughing because I couldn't believe that somebody would really just throw away a perfectly good computer like that.
Right,
I
right.
started to think, how often do people throw away computers?
hmm
So that's what really got me started.
Wow. Okay. All right. So um people you discovered that people were had perfectly fine operable computers that was functional. Maybe they were a few years old and maybe they upgraded to a new computer, a laptop or something, and just had some extra that they were going to dispose. So then you have what we call, e-waste. And now, is there a proper way to dispose a computer if you're
Well,
going to?
first and foremost, there's a battery that's inside the computer. Those things, lithium, you don't want to put them inside of a landfill. That's a bit of a fire hazard. They do recommend that you take parts that you can't really repair like that to your local e-waste processing facility
Okay.
or a Best Buy, some company that can deal with it correctly. Other than that, you can bring to me.
All right. So
Yeah.
probably instead of, I mean, because I'm gonna be honest with you. I've seen in dumpsters just regular people just throwing out their computers. I've seen towers, and I never thought about the parts, the batteries or whatever that can be a part of it, where there's a battery inside the tower or a laptop or something. The dangers of the lithium in the landfill, and so that's good. That people should be conscious that they should take their computer to their local e-waste recyclable facility, or they can give them to you. But I want to
Yes,
talk
sir.
about the purpose of. So you formed this foundation. Did you get a few of your friends to form a board, or what was the process of getting the paperwork and things going for your foundation?
So the first thing I did was crack open the internet and read a book.
Okay.
I read I read as much as I could read. I read for a good for the first like 3 months of starting out. I read as much as I could read. I read what laws were around, what I needed to do, and what the potential impact of what I was doing was going to be. I did as much research as I can to understand my market and see what what I could really do to get started. And it started out with making sure I had enough money to pay for the filing fees,
Okay.
making sure that I filled out everything that I was filing correctly, just, as much legwork as possible. And then that's when I went to other people and said, hey, so I got this thing. I need board members. Some people said, sounds like a lot of work. And other people were like, sure. So the people who said sure, we had a few more conversations. We talked about it, and then we got things going. The people who said, I don't know about all that.
Okay.
Well, they are getting to watch from the sidelines.
All right. They may support later. All right. So
Yeah.
you have this idea to go start your foundation. I like that you immediately went to the internet, did research, got books, educated yourself on what's the process. You saved up money to get the proper filings with the state of Michigan. I'm not sure. I know that there could be a process. Are you considered a nonprofit with a 501c3 status with the IRS, or is that something that you're still working on?
So I do have 501c3 status. I
Okay, great.
am, full disclosure, I am currently registered in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. Okay. All
So
right.
yeah, it's a good state to do nonprofits in.
Okay.
Like, yeah, full
All right. Well, I know
disclosure.
that well, no, is that Delaware? Or no, that's you're talking about Massachusetts. I'm thinking about Delaware. Okay, so because a lot a lot of businesses are operating out of Delaware because they're friendly for
Yeah,
formal corporations. Okay. All right.
same thing
So you
for Massachusetts with nonprofits.
right, right. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay. All right. So you got your 501c3 status. The paperwork is from Massachusetts, which is you lived there for a little bit, so you're familiar. I'm
Mhm.
assuming you still may have family there.
Oh, of course, whole
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
family in Massachusetts.
Okay. All right. So that's great. All right. So you do that. So what is the whole purpose? What drives you in this foundation? Tell our audience what's your overall purpose.
My personal mission is to build the best of worlds, and in order to do that, I need to be able to start with education. For most people, education is the most stressless path to the future. And I know that may sound funny because when you're working with education, you got a lot of books you got to read, you got you got a lot of classes that you may have to go through. Your
Mhm.
mind has to do a whole lot of work. You work so much with your mind just to get something out, to maybe get a diploma that you may be able to get employed with. But look at the other paths that people have to take. Those paths have to be forged through fire. That's hard. It's hard to look at a path and realize that it hasn't been paved yet. You got to do all that yourself. And then there's the other things that you can do in life
Yes.
that may put you in harm's way. And it's not the best for our society, nor for the individuals who partake in that type of life. So if I want to be able to help with that, I need to make sure that every student everywhere can have the access to education that they need so that they can build the future that they want to see instead of depending on other people to give it to them.
Okay. Okay. So your purpose is to be involved with education and making sure our young people have access to education and have the resources, whether it's computer to a functional computer, and to have, I don't know, there's efforts to have broadband and all that kind of stuff, the internet. So that kind of talks about when I showed them that clip before we went into our discussion about the digital divide. What have you learned about the digital divide here in the Detroit area and also back in Massachusetts?
It's wide. When you go to the city, you go to the downtowns, you see all those tall skyscrapers, you know about the people who may own them.
Right.
You know about all the billionaires and stuff that are in the area, all those rich
Right.
people. But you don't know about the builders and their families. Usually, a lot of those people, they're scraping by, barely,
Hmm.
barely scraping by, working with little means in order to provide something for their children. They can't afford to get computers for their children. They must provide the necessities:
Hmm.
food, clothing, and shelter. If they're struggling with those three things, what makes you think that it's going to be easy for them to think that a computer is something that's necessary in their life?
Right.
Especially when that's an increase on your electricity bill first of all,
Yes.
and your children might take a lot of their time and waste it on those computers. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when you get something that you can entertain yourself with, watch a little YouTube, go on IG, TikTok, all those things,
Hmm.
you're not gonna really care to do much of your household chores. So to them, it's gonna seem like a liability.
Right.
They don't understand how important it is in the world that is being shaped right now as we speak. Having access to the digital world is.
Right. 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 So what I like about what you do also is you are addressing two issues. The one is the digital divide, providing computers uh, for financially challenged families, low income students, but you're also dealing with e-waste. Talk a little bit more about your role with sustainability and involved with your foundation.
Yeah. So, man, e-waste, where do I start? Roughly around 50 million tons of e-waste are thrown out each year. 50 million.
Right.
That's a lot of computers that could easily be recycled, put into someone else's hands, something that could benefit a family that we often don't think about, much less the impact that it has on our environment. At least, at least 60% of a lot of the greenhouse gases that we have and a lot of the pollution that we have in general comes from electronics. And
Hmm.
that's not something that we think about. You know, we're always hearing about carbon and, methane, but we're not thinking about everything that's coming from the computers that we use and how throwing those out so often is impacting our environment. So being able to create sustainable systems for that and able to tackle those issues will allow for not only us to help the less fortunate, but to also help the environment.
Okay. All right. So you're dealing with helping the environment and also helping the less fortunate. So let's go into the whole process. I was on your website and I want to show some slides here. Um, so I think this was an event where people donated computers at the Detroit Rotary Club. So what's the whole process? Somebody has a computer uh, that they're going to get rid of. They call the Hendricks Foundation. What do? You have somebody You go and pick it up. You send an Uber or DoorDash. How does somebody get the computer to you, and what's the whole problem? And then what do you do with it?
So yeah, first thing you want to do, go to our website, or if you see that email right there, info@hendricksfoundation.org, hendricks-foundation.org. Just shoot us an email. Let us know about the computer. Let us know how many you have and what's a good pickup time or anything like that. Most of the time, I personally will make sure to come meet you, pick up the computer. If you want to have a little conversation to learn more about what I do, we could do that. But yeah, that's basically the process.
Okay, so they go.
Oh, and I make sure it is tax deductible, so you also do get a tax receipt with that donation.
Okay, so it's tax deductible to get a tax receipt. How do you get it to the students or the low income family or the financially challenged family? What's that process? How do you go about that?
So what I do after I get the computer, of course, I'm gonna repair it because I need some repairs. I'm gonna have to clean it, see whatever the problem is, and set it all up. Once I set it up, then I try and go through some local schools, but I also do some work internationally, figure out where this computer is needed, and then I get it out to the students wherever they are needed.
Okay, okay. And do you have relationships with like some of the schools here in the Detroit area, or how's that been going?
So most of my relationships right now in the Detroit area are currently in their forming stage, especially with Detroit Public Schools. I have had some conversations with the superintendent. I think it's superintendent. Yeah, I have had some conversations with them, and we are slowly moving forward into whatever our future may be able to be.
Okay.
But for everything else, it's just working with extracurricular programs, anything after school or summer programs, like Journey, for instance. I've done some work with Journey, and we'll be doing some more work with Journey in the future and other companies like Journey for programs like Journey.
All right, so after school programs, you're working on building relationships with the school.
Yeah, it's a little hard to you're cracking up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Just a little bit. All right. Yeah, I think you're good now.
Oh, okay. Maybe the audio kind of, we dealing with modern technology. Technical challenges up, but hopefully you can hear me good now.
Yeah, I can.
All right, yeah, I did hear a little faint. Okay. So what I wanted to ask, so you're working on building relationships, and so your organization, the foundation I think is a little bit over a year old. Is my understanding?
Yeah, just a little bit over a year old. Okay. March 17th was our first anniversary.
Okay. All right. And so you had a few events, you're building relationships. What's the best way if people are buying into your vision? What's the best way for them to be supportive? Donating computers or something else?
Yeah, you can. We're always looking for volunteers, of course. We need to build out the team. If you want to donate link is right on the website. In fact, if you go right to the website, right on the homepage, press the donate button. Right on the homepage.
Yeah. So I have a slide of your website. Do you encourage people to contact you? There's a phone number on there.
Yeah, always. The phone number is also good too. If you shoot me a call, I'll get right to you.
Well, tell us the phone number.
774-552-9434.
Okay. And the best email people can reach out to you?
Personally, DEAN at Hendricks-foundation.org, or you can always go to info@hendricksfoundation.org. Okay. I'll find a way to reach you either way. Just direct your message to me and I'll get to you.
Okay. And you're on social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and also Instagram?
Yes, sir.
All right. So it's all there for those who will see. And we'll have some links in our description on our YouTube playback. Okay. So I wanted to ask, what do you find joy in about what you do, or what makes you happy about the work you're doing?
All right. So I was in Jamaica the other day, and I decided to bring down some computers with me and do a little speech at one of the schools out there. I gave away 6 computers by the end of the speech. When the students talked to me, they told me how much that actually impacted their lives, how much they were getting ready to start taking tests. They were getting ready to do all sorts of things. And they didn't know how they were going to get all that work done. You know, they need Word and those type of things. Once they received that computer, they said it was like God just answered their prayer just like that. And I didn't know there was the impact that I was having.
Wow.
I didn't know. I mean, like you kind of have it in the back of your mind, like, yeah, you know, I'm giving this to someone who needs it. Whatever I'm doing is going to have an impact on their life. But when you hear them say it out of their mouth, the actual impact that you're having, how you are actually changing their life, it's different. And I think those are the moments that I live for. When you know you've actually changed someone's life. And it's not just an idea that you have in your mind. When you can see that impact and you know that you, however small it was, just changed the world. And if you can do that over and over and over again, you will see the world that you want to see.
Okay. That's awesome that you was able to provide those computers to those 5 students, and they felt that was an answer to prayer. I just want to commend you about the work you're doing. You're a young man. Uh, you could be doing other stuff that young men do. uh, Getting
Man,
off into all kinds
hmm
of troubles and
yeah,
chasing whatever. But
yeah,
I commend you for
yeah.
starting this foundation and putting in the work to help young people to deal with environmental issues, as well as helping families who are uh, economically challenged and may not have access to things like this. So I want to commend you. Here at the Detroit Metro Plug podcast, we're about celebrating uh, local people in the Detroit area that are doing things that's making an impact. So this is our way of celebrating you and encouraging you to continue in that work. So I want to give some air horns to that.
Thanks, brother.
Also, we want to encourage those who are viewing, whether if you want to donate computers or you can donate to their cause, financial donation, tax deductible donations to their website. Share that website one more time to our listeners and viewers.
www.hendricks-foundation.org.
Okay, www.hendricks dash, don't forget to put the dash,
Mm-hmm.
hendricksfoundation.org. Okay, so before we wrap things up, any announcements about anything you're doing or working on you want to share with our audience today?
Any announcements? Man, it's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, every day I am working on sort of new things because this is a bit of a newfound, new nonprofit. It's a little bit shaky with everything. A lot of plans that I have in store aren't 100% concrete.
Okay.
However, I can tell you that I do plan on teaching some more classes.
Okay.
Didn't mention that actually. I did teach a class back in February, I think it was. Yeah,
Okay.
February, to about 18 students on how to do a little bit of computer repairs. And by the end of the course, they all were able to take home laptops.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'll be planning on doing more stuff like that in the future. I did want to do another one in March.
Hmm.
We'll see how that goes. Again, it's all about the conversations and seeing where they go and what happens. But for right now, everything is sort of up in the air. I trying to plan another donation drive at some point in June, so that is something to look out for.
Okay.
And yeah, anything else?
All right.
Keep your eye on our social media, and
Okay. So
we'll
follow
keep
you on
you informed.
Facebook, Instagram at the Hendricks Foundation, Hendricks Dash Foundation. Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, we're looking forward to that. So with the donations that you did before, how does that work? People just have computers that they're not using, they just drop them off and they get standard tax deduction, or
Yeah, don't have a drop off location as of yet, but as long as you talk to me, we have that conversation, I can find a way to get the computer into my hands and off out of yours, give you a tax credit for it, and then
okay.
we'll see where that connection goes.
All right. Okay. Well, man, we really appreciate you being on a podcast and sharing about the great work you're doing with
Thank
bridging
you.
the digital divide.
Thanks
Uh,
for the opportunity to share.
yes. Any closing remarks before we conclude for today?
I want to let everybody know watching that anything that you want to do, it starts today. It doesn't matter how big or how small your goal is. All that matters is that you know that you want to do it. See, once you have that idea in your mind that it has to get done, who's going to stop?
Right.
So just go through, do it.
Do it.
What's the worst that could happen?
Right.
It's just an idea in your head.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for those final words and final thoughts, and continue the great work. I see great things in your future. You're a young man that's really concerned about issues and going forth. So commend you, and thanks again for being in the podcast.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes our podcast for this week. I'll see you next week. And by the way, if you find value in what we're doing, I want to encourage you to like and subscribe. We're here as a platform to highlight Detroit difference makers that you may not even hear about. You hear a lot of negative things in the news. We're about celebrating and highlighting and amplifying people who are doing great things here in the Metro Detroit area and give them their flowers and to just celebrate their contributions. So if you find value in that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel. Go to our Facebook page at Detroit Metro Plug Podcast, like our page, follow us on YouTube. If you have questions or if you're looking to be a guest, you can email me. So I'm going to share a little bit about that real quick, and then that concludes our podcast. I'll see you next week.
Hey everyone, this is Charles with Detroit Metro Plug Podcast. If you are finding value in today's video, I invite you to subscribe, like, and comment. We would love to hear your feedback. And don't forget to click on that notification bell so you can be notified when we have upcoming episodes of difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement. If you're interested in being a part of our Facebook networking community, I invite you to click on the link to be a part of that community. This is a place where you can network with like-minded people and a chance to share about your product or service. If you're interested in working with me directly on how you can share your story with video or with podcasting, you can email me direct at DetroitMetroPlug313@gmail.com. Thanks again, and let's get back to this interview.